Is Trump trying to save democracy?
I am the one saving democracy.
Or is he trying to turn America into his very own monarchy?
We have a nutjob wannabe king.
Hello, my name is Clint. This is Right versus Left, and we're here to figure out who is right when it comes to how Trump is using his power to save democracy, or to stuff democracy into a catapult to launch at anyone who tries to stop the kingdom he's building for himself. If you're going to win this fight, you first have to know what the other side is thinking. Because if you look at conservatives and all you see are a bunch of schlubs who are blindly following their dear leader into a dystopian monarchy, you don't understand them at all. And if you look at liberals as a bunch of sore losers screaming about the end of the world and running around like chickens with their heads chopped off, then you're missing the point. You have to listen to what they're saying if you're going to make sense of whether Donald Trump is trying to strengthen America's democracy or undermine it and install himself as its new king. Warning, this is for people who are not afraid to listen to the other side. So if you can't stand people whose opinion is different from yours, this would be a good time to bail out. If you're still here, I would love to hear from you. As I describe these different viewpoints, let me know if you think of something that we missed. So how do conservatives see this situation? My friends on the right have taken some time to explain things to me, and here's what they said. President Trump is doing several things to save democracy. They told me Trump is taking out-of-control regulatory agencies like the FCC, FTC, and SEC and bringing them under his supervision. And yes, they are part of the executive branch, and they tell me the entire executive branch needs to be in line with what the President of the United States wants to do. Because as president, how can you accomplish what you promised the American people you would do if there are parts of your administration that you don't supervise and are run by unelected bureaucrats that you can't hold accountable? Because that would be like trying to run a business where entire divisions of your company are just kind of off doing their own thing. Trump is changing that. My friends on the right also told me that Trump is trying to streamline the government, and I think we can all agree that less waste in government would be a very good thing. And through Doge, Trump tried to accomplish just that. Broad waste and abuse inside a democracy weakens the democracy, so a lot of my conservative friends applauded the direction that was going. Lastly, Trump is trying to fix a broken voting system. If you're going to have a democracy at all, you need free and fair elections. Now, not all my conservative friends thought the 2020 election was outright stolen, but they've all been hearing about how elections are rigged for well over 10 years now. And to say that their confidence in election results is not high is an understatement. Trump is, in their view, trying to fix the voting system so it is fair, and overall that sounds like a worthy goal. So how do liberals see this situation? My friends on the left got much more animated when I asked them if Trump wants to be king of America, but they didn't just go crazy, they brought receipts as well. Interestingly, one of the first things they brought up was Trump politicizing agencies that were intended to be independent, like the DOJ and the FCC. While my friends on the right say Trump is using these agencies to execute his political vision, my friends on the left tell me Trump is using these departments to attack his political opponents and anyone who speaks out against him, which would be a very king-like move. They tell me Trump is trying to tear down one of the pillars of democracy, the free press. They tell me Trump calls anyone who doesn't lavish him with praise fake news. But more than that, he is using agencies like the FCC to attack the press. People on the left tell me that's not how a democracy-loving president should act. And if this is what Trump is doing, then they have a point. They tell me Trump has been defying Congress and judges, ignoring or trampling all over the other branches of government, which significantly weakens our democracy. They told me Trump doesn't like the checks and balances our democracy has put in place to stop him from ruling the whole country like a king would. They tell me Trump thinks he is above the law, he's breaking the law, and he's using the presidency to protect himself from the law, and that puts him squarely in king territory. And on a related note, what is up with Trump's fixation with gold? Golden Oval Office, gold Sharpies, golden dome, gold card, gold coins, gold ballroom, gold toilets. I mean, who else adorns everything with gold? Kings, that's who. Kings, pharaohs, emperors, but mostly kings. Young kings, old kings, tribal kings, medieval kings, El Dorado kings, Hobbit kings, Burger kings, and Jesus, the King of Kings? If we look at the inside of a cathedral, then you could say that. Regardless, whenever Trump has a hand in decorating something, it looks like King Midas threw up all over it. Does that mean Trump wants to be a king? That's actually neither here nor there. Just something that someone brought up, and far be it from me not to pursue an interesting idea. So those are the ideas I received. Those are the arguments people gave me for and against Trump trying to save democracy versus trying to subdue it to become our beloved monarch. I'm sure there are more arguments, but let's look into what we've got here and see what evidence we can find for both sides. And here are the standards we're going to use to judge everything. The job of the president in a democracy such as ours is to follow the law and apply the law equally to everybody else. Is that fair? That seems fair to me. That's the kind of president we all want, right? Yes. Yes, it is. Now, I'm not saying Trump can't say outrageous stuff and own the libs and dip his head in bronzer every morning. That's fine. He just can't use his power to break the law or use the government to unfairly apply the law to other people. Otherwise, those are reasons to stop calling him Mr. President and start calling him Your Highness. I think we should all be able to agree on that. That's the baseline for a democracy. That limbo stick is set to about eye level, so there should be no trouble passing under that. So here we go. Let's start with free and fair voting system. So there's a bill called the SAVE Act, which is supposed to make it so only U.S. citizens can vote in federal elections. That is already the law, but this act requires you bring along certain identification while registering and voting. Election officials would tell you that voting practices are already secure, but this bill says, why chance it? You can read the SAVE Act online and see if your eyeballs don't go buggy after about 5 minutes like mine did. And while it has the downside of possibly making it more difficult for about 2% of American citizens to vote, the upside is maybe if we pass this into law, we can avoid shenanigans like this.
I will totally accept the results of this great and historic presidential election if I win.
But as it is, requiring voter ID sounds like it would go a long ways to making everybody happy. We all want free and fair elections. We all need confidence in our voting system. And this looks like it's taking us in the right direction. So this is a win for democracy and for Trump. What's next? Let's go with those rogue agencies that have traditionally been independent, but Trump has pulled them under his control, which apparently is well within Trump's power to do. But has he politicized them to attack his opponents? How has Trump weaponized the FCC, FTC, or SEC? Trump and his appointed FCC chairman Brendan Carr have been accused of using the agency's powers for political retribution against news organizations like CBS and NBC due to unfavorable coverage. Has he really? Let's take a look. Okay, here is Trump on Truth Social saying their licenses should be removed by the FCC because they tell 97% bad stories about him. That's not generally considered a viable reason to revoke broadcasting licenses. That is the free press and free speech that Trump is calling on the FCC to punish. Not unlike a Karen kicking down the door of a Jamba Juice and demanding to speak to the manager because an employee gave her the side eye. This looks more like an attack on free speech and the press, and less like whatever Trump was referring to here.
And I stopped government censorship once and for all, and we brought back free speech to America.
Here's Trump saying on Truth Social that Seth Meyers, a late-night show host, has no talent and NBC should fire him immediately. Now that's fine. I'm all for bad-mouthing people who bad-mouth you because heaven knows the late-night show host started talking crap about Trump first. And Trump has every right to express his opinions as long as the FCC doesn't get involved. Oh, and Brendan Carr, the FCC chairman, reposted it half an hour later on X. Okay, that doesn't look good. But at least Carr isn't directly threatening to pull ABC's license if a certain late-night show host isn't fired, right? That would be not great.
Frankly, when you see stuff like this, I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead.
They aren't subtle, are they? They aren't even trying to act impartial at this point. Even Ted Cruz sees it.
Look, I like Brendan Carr. He's a good guy. He's the chairman of the FCC. I work closely with him.
But what he said there is dangerous as hell. He says, we can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way.
Yeah.
And I got to say, that's right out of Goodfellas.
In this case, Trump is not even trying to hide that he is working with the FCC to attack people he doesn't like. But while this behavior is not going to save democracy anytime soon, it also happens to be one of the things I love about Donald Trump. You never have to wonder what's going on inside his head because he'll just lay it out for you. Most politicians would love to get their critics booted off the air, but the optics wouldn't look good, so they don't. Whereas Trump is like, I'm gonna do it, and I'm not even gonna try and hide it. But definitely king-like behavior. Maybe there's a reason why those agencies were independent in the first place. That was reining in rogue agencies, politicizing agencies, plus some attacking the free press for good measure. Let's look at fraud, waste, and abuse for a moment, which I'll say looks like a win for Trump and democracy. I'll just put it out there at the beginning. You can question the wisdom of putting a chainsaw-wielding madman genius in charge of overhauling the government. You can argue whether Doge helped democracy by cutting out a bunch of waste and fraud or hurt democracy by gutting a lot of its programs and employees. There's even a question of the legality, with a subtle hint of hypocrisy, of Trump putting an unelected bureaucrat in charge of a repurposed government agency. But after parsing through a mountain of accusations and opinions, and while their methods were questionable at best, Trump's intent is something we would all like to see carried out. We would all like to see the government streamlined and not wasting so much money. So while the results may or may not have been a win for democracy, certainly the sentiment of getting rid of fraud, waste, and abuse in government is a turd most politicians don't want to touch. But the people want them to pick it up and polish it off and run with it again. And good on Trump for at least trying. That sounds like saving democracy. Let's look at Trump thinking he's above the law. How has the Trump administration disobeyed the law? There's a lot to look at here, but let's focus on anywhere where he has specifically defied the other two branches of government or the Constitution itself. Oh, violating appropriations law. Doesn't that sound like fun? Not really, but illegally usurping Congress's exclusive power kinda does. Let's look into that. Now, I'm not interested in what the liberal media has to say on this, because when it comes to Trump, I find them regularly making things sound way worse than they really are. But here's a Fox News article, and I'm pretty sure it's not biased against Trump, which is what we're looking for. We're looking for a source that is friendly towards Trump that confirms he has been defying the legislative and judicial branches. And this is detailing how a judge has ordered the Trump administration to comply with a previous order issued by a judge to unfreeze funding that was ordered by Congress. You see, that is the job of the president, to spend money according to the laws Congress has passed. And if he doesn't, then the courts step in to make a ruling. Here, clearly Trump is not doing what the courts and Congress lawfully ordered him to do. Yes, the Trump administration says it's reviewing all State Department and USAID foreign assistance programs on a case-by-case basis. But that's not their job. Their job is to obey the law, not to justify why they're not obeying the law. Justifying why they are not obeying the law is actually Fox News' job. Which is what they're trying to justify here, with Trump blowing off the other two branches of government while shooting holes in our democracy over foreign aid. But come on now, that is not what we elect a president to do. I know I said that I love that Trump is attacking fraud, waste, and abuse, but I don't love that more than I love constitutional checks and balances. We've also got immigration and due process. Executive orders have also been issued to end birthright citizenship, contradicting the 14th Amendment, and to deport individuals without due process, defying court orders. You had me at defying court orders. Now, Trump wanted to, but did not succeed at, single-handedly amending the 14th Amendment. But here, deporting individuals without due process not only shows Trump defying court orders, but also defying the Fifth Amendment as well. It's a two-for-one deal. We know this because on Congress.gov, they officially tell us what due process means for immigrants. The Fifth Amendment says no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. It says here this due process clause applies to aliens, even if they're here unlawfully, and says they have the right to a hearing in court before they can be deported. That's if we're doing everything by the book, which we're not. Because how can you deport Trump's goal of 3,000 illegal immigrants a day if they're all jammed up in due process court proceedings? You can't. And so we're not, which goes against court orders and the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution, not what people in most circles consider democracy-saving behavior. Now, to show I'm not a Trump hater, let's play a little game. If I search for which United States presidents have denied immigrants due process, let's see if we can find, yep, look, a Democrat president who did this. Once again, we don't trust AI to know which way is up. But the ACLU has said the Obama administration has prioritized speed over fairness in the removal system, sacrificing individualized due process in the pursuit of record removal numbers. Now I realize this may come as a blow to my friends on the left finding out the Obama administration was sacrificing immigrants' due process, but take some solace in that it might be worse for my friends on the right that Obama, a Democrat, was apparently posting record removal numbers. While this situation might not sit well with anybody, the real problem is anytime a president defies the Constitution in pursuit of their personal agenda, our democracy is weakened. Definitely the behavior of a king, doesn't matter which party does it. To wrap up Trump's above the law status, one of my friends told me he was convicted of felonies in 2024. He assumed that if he won the presidency, no sentence would be imposed, and he was correct. He demonstrated, quite openly, that some people are above the law in this country. He exploited a political system that has a weakening role of law and a strengthening executive branch. Fair enough. Trump is above the law. We know this because if I were convicted of 34 felonies, it wouldn't matter if I was recently voted president-elect of my homeowners association. I'm going to jail. But in terms of fines or jail time or even probation, Trump got nothing. That's what it means to be above the law. Yes, it would be embarrassing to have a former United States president go to jail as a convicted felon. So instead, we elected him to a second term. We really do live in the strangest timeline. So that covers everything. So what do you think? Is Donald Trump saving democracy? At least in ways that really count? Do his efforts like securing elections and cleaning up fraud in the government outweigh any ways he might be bypassing the law? Or is he bypassing the law for the greater good, so it's worth it? Or has he gone too far when he's ignored the Constitution and defied the other branches of government? And is he doing it because he wants all the power? Because he wants to rule like a king? What do you think? I've shared my opinion throughout this video, and while I'll repeat that I would much prefer a president who adheres strictly to the Constitution and the laws that he has pledged to uphold, it's worth saying that I think Trump is going to take as much power as he can possibly get. But not because he's Trump, but because this is true of every president we've ever had. Presidents have historically taken all the power they could get, and vetoed any bills that limit their power. So if there is power creep in the government, it's gone to the president. And I get that. I personally don't want anybody telling me what I can and can't do. So on the one hand, I'm not surprised, and I don't blame him. On the other hand, one of my friends on the right pointed out that it's the job of Congress and the courts to rein in the president when he's overstepped his bounds. Have the other two branches just rolled over and let the president do whatever he wants? That sounds like a future video, but if you have an issue with the president exhibiting king-like behavior, the other two branches are supposed to be his checks and balances. And if they aren't willing to do that, then they are more like court jesters serving the king than equal branches of government serving the people. That's why we need both the right and the left. Because when one president is in power, and their party controls the House and Senate, and they have judges stacked in the Supreme Court, then the president just gets more power faster. And there's nobody willing to stop them, which, if your guy is in office, sounds great until the other party comes back into power. And now their president can use those same powers to do stuff you don't like, and push things much further than they should have been able to. So we need opposition. We need the opposing party to put the other side in check and keep everything from going off the rails. That, my constitutionally minded friends remind me, is how our system of government was intended to work. Having a president who obeys the law is nice and all, but what in the world is he doing to the rest of the world? Click here to see whether Trump is making us the hottest country on the planet, or if everyone else just hates us now, or click here to see all my best videos.